It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy and Rene are here. We're going to say goodbye to Sal Soghoian. No, he's not dead, but he is leaving Apple. What's the future of Automator and Apple Script? We'll also give you my review of the new MacBook Pro, pros and cons, and explain why those speaker grills don't really do much at all. It's all next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 534, recorded Tuesday, November 22nd, 2016. Thank you, Sal. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by FreshBooks, the super simple cloud accounting software that's giving thousands of freelancers and small businesses the tools to save time billing and get paid faster. Try it free at freshbooks.com/MacBreak. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Go to ring.com/MacBreak and get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer. And by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans. Rocket Mortgage brings the mortgage process into the 21st century with a fast, easy, and completely online process. Check out Rocket Mortgage today at quickenloans.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. And, of course, we do it with the help of two of the premier journalists in the business, Andy Ihnatko, who covers all technology for the Chicago Sun-Times and has his own podcasts. In fact, two of them now. The Ihnatko, the Almanac launched, right?
Almanac launched a couple weeks ago. We're still ticking. Has not been canceled yet.
That's a good thing. And, of course, he also does the Material podcast, both on Relay.fm.
Relay.fm, yeah.
And also with us, Rene Ritchie of iMore.com, who does podcasts beyond number.
I'm cutting down, Leo. I'm cutting down.
Apple Talk. You say that every time we ask you.
I'm also apparently working at the docks, or it's winter here. I'm not sure which one yet.
Is that a toque?
It is a toque. It's what we here call a toque. You'd probably call it a gentil chapeau. I'm not sure.
Gentil chapeau. What do we call it? A wool cap.
A cap?
A wool cap, yeah.
I was just going to wish him good luck against Apollo Creed. I think he has what it takes to go the distance, Rene. I ain't no bum. Adrian, Andy.
Rene, you had talent, but you just became a thumb breaker.
Wow. I don't hate Balboa, but I would for any man who tries to take what I got.
This is exciting.
I had talent, but what I didn't have was management. I didn't have the proper management, Rock.
Sorry.
If it dies, it dies.
Was that Dolph Lundgren? Was that a brief Dolph Lundgren stuck in the middle there?
Yes. Well, he was Ivan Drago in the fourth one. Drago.
I have only seen one Rocky movie, and that was recently under force majeure, and I shall never see another one, I think.
Was that Creed? Was that the new one?
No, the first one.
Oh, the first one,
I had never seen it.
It's both timeless and incredibly timed. Like, it's incredibly anachronistic.
So dated, yeah.
Yeah.
Big story, breaking news, which has come, America held hostage, day 30,000. I think we're really seeing a new Apple here. We're seeing Apple really narrow its focus. I did get the new MacBook. This is the 15 with the Touch Bar. And I have... Oh, Andy disappeared.
I still see you.
You're a black screen. Somebody unplugged the switcher.
That's right.
There's no HDMI port on your MacBook. That's what caused it.
You see the dongle? You see the dongle I got to use here? See that dongle? That's all right. I don't mind dongles. You always use dongles. Dongles are us. I mean, there's always something going on there with the dongles.
Oh, God. Stockholm Syndrome. They've gotten to you, Leo.
As a matter of fact, Where's my cereal port?
I have a dongle bag, so I can carry all the dongles that I need, including the very important, in fact, you should probably buy as many of these as you buy headphone jack to Lightning. This is the USB to Type-C dongle adapter.
They switched to parallel. I didn't have a dongle. I had to buy a new card.
These, you don't have to buy new dongles. because at least Apple gave you 4 Type-C ports. But some interesting things going on, which we'll talk about. I'll give you my thoughts on this new laptop. I think I have good news for you, Andy. Anyway.
My funniest story was my boss, Kevin, he bought his, and he didn't pay attention, so he got the one with the Quebec French keyboard.
Oh, funny.
And he just called me saying, do they all have keyboards like this? Why is there an E accent aigu next to the shift bar? How do I use this thing? And it was just an accident, but he had about 10 minutes of complete bewilderment before he realized it.
Is the Quebec French keyboard AZERTY, or is it still QWERTY?
It's QWERTY, but it has it's got a different layout, and there is like literally an E accent aigu, and I think there's a U with an accent character on it as well.
I have an accent aigu on my name. It's actually Leo, so I would appreciate that. I have to always do Option E to get it.
But if you get one of those, no, Apple didn't change your keyboard that much. That was a clerical error.
We decided to make them all French. Ha! Enjoy. No, the story I was talking about, but I think it goes along with a kind of a larger narrative that I'm starting to build in my head. Apple has abandoned, apparently, according to Bloomberg, Mark Gurman, the wireless routers. No more airports. The Apple team responsible has been disbanded. Gurman writes, another move to try to sharpen the company's focus on consumer products that generate the bulk of its. Oh, shut up! I hate instant.
If it's not Mark, we don't want to see it.
That's the the autoplay video, which everybody's doing now. Which is just this is why we can't have nice things. They've been doing this over the past year. We were wondering. I mean, they haven't updated the Airport Extreme since 2013. That was an AC router, so it didn't feel like there was like a pressing need. Nevertheless, especially as you see companies like Eero and Luma and Google doing Ubiquiti doing these now mesh routers that solve a big problem many of us have with Wi-Fi access throughout the house, and Apple just silence. Well, now we know why. They don't feel like this is a business. The only thing that was unique about the Apple router that can't be replaced is the time machine capability, right?
It can't. So having an internal hard drive that was automatically set up, and I have one here. I love it because I don't have to think about it, and things I don't have to think about I actually end up using. Who knew? So the one
time
that's set
capsule.
up, all you do all you do is plug it in, and it automatically time machines all the computers that you connect it to. Is no more. And also the Airport Express had the built-in AirPlay capability.
Oh yeah,
so
that was a nice way to extend
speakers.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you just plug into speakers, you could AirPlay to any set of normal speakers that had a 3.5 millimeter headset jack. Ironically.
Oh, so it's kind of like an Apple TV for sound, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was licensed by other speaker makers, but the video part hasn't been.
I have a AirPlay JBL system that will take AirPlay. So.
And of course, you can use Time Machine on a lot of routers that have USB ports or cable modems have USB ports. If you put it on the network, it'll find it. So
or NAS. I think NAS has a lot of Time Machine built in now.
Right, exactly. I have Time Machine on my NAS too. So it's
does it do the same thing, which is auto discover other Apples and automatically back them up though?
You would have to bridge
it manually.
It was a manual.
Yes, it's not the simplicity of you take this out of the box, you plug it in, and this app that is run natively on your device asks you, do you want to automatically save everything you ever do so that disasters can be deeply, deeply mitigated by clicking this one button. So it's kind of like what you said. There are a lot of companies that are doing mesh networks. I've got Google Wi-Fi on the way for testing, and they solve a lot of these problems. I do understand Apple's focus on just things that have screens on them, to basically become that kind of computer company. It's too bad because it's not as though there aren't still a lot of opportunities to make people's lives better and easier with all these accessories that are required to make all the MacBooks and all the iPads and all the Apple Watches work better. So that's too bad. There's some secret sauce that Apple puts into things that unfortunately is not going to be available for home networking anymore.
Yeah, my understanding is that this is very similar to the 4K and 5K displays, which I believe they were testing for a long time and ultimately decided not to release. It's that they don't necessarily bring anything that there is special sauce, absolutely, but they don't necessarily push the market anymore. When they were releasing airports, famously, Steve Jobs says, "Look, there's no cables," and he makes Phil Schiller jump off of things to prove it. And for many years, they were driving wireless. They just weren't included in a lot of laptops, and Apple included them in notebooks and included routers and really helped push the forefront of the technology. They would always update them 802.11g and N and AC. And the same thing with the displays. They put out that IPS display after the iMac came out, and it was amazing because Apple would buy 1 million panels in bulk. But now the feeling, I think, is that they no longer have to drive those particular technologies. We have wonderful companies like Ubiquiti and Eero making these mesh networks, and we have companies like LG and Samsung making amazing panels, and Apple doesn't have to drive those things anymore. So they would just as soon reduce their focus back to the core products and let the companies that have now established a whole lot of competency in those products make them.
Yeah, I used to recommend the Airport because it was, in many ways, the best router out there. But I stopped doing. Easy. Yeah, and it didn't have the security issues of the commodity routers. Apple kept it up to date. There were regular firmware updates. You didn't have WPS. Apple used a better system, and that turned out to be a flawed system, the WPS system. So Apple had an advantage in security. But that was in 2013, and as 2014, and then 2015. I think last year is the year I stopped saying buy an Apple router because they were more expensive. There were better, more modern routers that had, similar features. And now that these mesh routers are coming out, I think that's where I'm going now with most people is recommending that. Yeah. Mm. And I guess Apple just didn't want to compete in that market. And the question you raise in your go ahead.
Just quickly, I think that's really the key, that they really are focused on making sure that they stay in a good position as a company, which means that if they can focus on things where there is no competition, where they can continue to make their arguments about here's why we design things this way, here's why we build things to this caliber of construction, this is why we build laptops that'll last 5 years instead of just 2 or 3 years. It's easier to make that statement if you say, and by the way, this is the only version of the Mac you can buy. This is only Mac hardware you can buy. This is the only iOS hardware you can buy. If you start competing in areas where, we're going to compete against not just the makers of the $200 really good routers that we want to make, we're also competing against people who are making the $40, $50, $60 routers that are perfectly good for a lot of people, and it's hard to make the case that here's why our $200 router costs more. So I think that it's mostly about the products they really like are not just high markup, but ones where they're sort of free to let the hardware make its own argument, free of saying, yes, but why does this cost $150 more than this other one that also will connect my laptop to the internet? There are reasons why Apple hardware is superior in that regard, but if you don't have to get into that rat's nest, why jump into it?
Yeah, and likewise, I mean, you don't want people to go and buy that wonderful new MacBook that has this newfangled Airport thing and then just not have a router at home to hook it up to, or to have a really bad router. And you don't want them to buy that MacBook and need to dock it on something and not have a really good display that it could drive. You want to provide that really good experience, and now you don't need to. There's other people doing it, so it feels almost like the end of one era.
Yeah. It also, I mean, to be fair, even though I recommended them, I mean, you had to have a Mac to really use it, and you had to have a Airport software to access it. It was a solution, and maybe this is in some degree contributed to its decline. That typical Apple required a Macintosh ecosystem to even be usable.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think it's too bad. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to help users by saying that kind of like what they were doing with the AirPods, where it is a bone standard stock Bluetooth headphone, but they realize that we have the ability, because we know everything there is to know about the iPhone. If it's an iPhone connecting to it, we can essentially make it so much easier to use. So I think there are a lot of opportunities they would have to make a wireless router that although routers have become much, much easier to use and much more powerful in the past 5 years since the last time I really redid the entire office, there are things that they could do by simply saying, okay, I'm going to use the dumb standard that takes 3 or 4 years to approve, and wait a minute, I see you're a Mac. Great. We're going to use all this proprietary stuff. Forget what I said about the standards. We're going to use this wonderful stuff that we developed in-house that we can do whatever we want with, that will make things 10 times better and 80 times easier. I gotcha. This is why you spent $30 more for the Apple logo, because we're making it so much better if you have an iPhone and an iPad and a Mac. So they're missing out that opportunity to help people that way, because oftentimes because this is a lot harder to do. It's harder to compete with 80 different models of router that at Best Buy. It's easier to say, here is the Apple router that you're going to be getting with the Apple computer. This you're going to be getting with the Apple iPhone.
Yeah, and it's also lack of differentiation. Like if they ever decided they wanted to get into making something like an Alexa or like a Google Home device, that would just subvert a lot of the base functionality in an airport. I know not everybody would want it, but for Apple, that would be a much more differentiated device, a device that automatically prefetches your backups, that does a nearline version of iCloud to stage things for you, that provides Siri microphones, and that does things that only Apple could do. So any like Ubiquiti is great and Eero is great, and they do things that not exactly what Apple could do, but they're so good at what they do, and what Apple can bring to it, I think now is something different. So if they choose to release their Apple Home Hub or whatever they end up calling it, I think that will probably take the place of Airport in their lineup.
The Shill asks in the chat room a really reasonable question from a business point of view, which is that Apple users want to buy Apple products. I mean, I think we'd all agree on that. An Apple user would rather have an Apple router, an Apple monitor, would rather have a completely Apple ecosystem. Why would Apple abandon that amazing advantage? I mean, very few companies have that, situation. Microsoft doesn't. Google doesn't.
Well, to Apple's credit, they don't just like license out. They don't just say to ask ASUS, could you build us a router with a couple of these extra features and we'll design a case for it. We'll put the Apple logo on it. That's to their credit. But it is also, she has a great point in that we expect that there's a value add with an Apple product. And it's it's a little bit disappointing that Apple can't be intrigued by everything, that they can only really get that excited about a laptop. They can get excited about a phone. They can get excited about a tablet. They can't get themselves excited about a networking product, even though this is something that, if I'm spending $1,820 on a new laptop, I might decide to round it up to $2,000 if my wireless router is 6 years old, and I can see it do something inside the store that is the thorn in my side with this old router for 5 or 6 years. So they do seem to be more comfortable with a restricted portfolio than with the idea of here is how we can make the entire experience better, as opposed to here's some things that we think that we're really good at, or here are the things that creatively really interest us. So they've been shedding all that stuff for years now, and that's just the latest point in the line.
They have so much stuff now too. I mean, we live in an era now where they have a new Apple TV and Apple Watch, and AirPods are coming out. And
do we have AirPods?
They're not a company that scales. Well, I mean, eventually. They're not a company that scales. They have these really small teams, and you look at like what's on Dan Riccio's desk and what's on all these, the hardware team and the platform team.
They're the highest valued company in the world.
They don't work that way though. They keep really small teams.
They have the resources. They are big enough to do more products. Every other company their size has many products. The other question, and you raised this question in your article at iMore.com, Rene, is if they're clearing the decks, what are they clearing the decks for? Is it because they have something they want to put their attention in?
I mean, it's not the new Mac Pro, right?
Yeah, I feel like they're clearing the decks of computer users.
No, that absolutely might be the case. It might be that they've established that the biggest growth market for their company going forward are the mainstream and prosumer markets, and that's where they're laser focusing. And they keep saying we're not afraid to say no. And I'd argue that there are companies that have more products, but there are very few companies that have a lot of really good products and have had successful products, surviving the generational shifts that Apple has survived. Like the companies that were great at desktop have not become great at mobile. And it's arguable how this generation of companies, like the companies that were great at search, have not become great at social. And Apple is struggling to find out what's next. What's the post PC era? So keeping focus, I think, as much as it hurts me, because I don't like the attitude where, I'm happy they cancel everything other people like, but as long as they keep they canceled my thing.
Right.
I think we all share some pain in this. And if they stay focused, we'll get some stuff we like, but we're also going to lose some of our darlings. And I'm sure people in the company are losing their darlings now.
I'm increasingly convinced that Apple's new focus will be on augmented reality. That seems to be, Tim Cook keeps saying AR, and that seems to be an area where a lot of companies have some very interesting plays. But it's down
Andy's
the
point,
road.
AI.
Huh?
Yeah, and to Andy's point from last week, AI. Those things are going to be. Yeah, I mean, they're huge. They've been huge investors in AI for years.
I don't think it's a huge. Frankly, 3 years for a router is pretty old. I generally tell people they need to replace their router every few years because they wear out. People don't think they do. They seem like solid state appliances, and they are, but they really do wear out. And I abandoned my Airport Extreme a few months ago, maybe a year ago now, because
they were
it wasn't
lucky
working.
802 moved so slowly. I mean, if they'd gone to AD or they'd gone to something else, they would have looked really old.
They're up to the new standard, so that's not the issue. But I think Apple probably did the right thing 3 years out. If we're not going to make a new one now, let's just cut the cord. And what they haven't announced this though, right? This is
and Mark is really well sourced, and if he says people have left that team,
I believe it. He says many of them went to Apple TV, which is interesting.
I mean, that's the interesting part here is Apple TV is one spoke in the hub, but there's people who don't need a set-top box, or they need something in a room that doesn't have a set-top box. And there's a whole range of – we've been hearing rumors about Apple working on various kinds of home hubs and next-generation networking appliances for years. And, what we now have as a router just might not be an interesting product for them anymore.
There was until recently some excitement that the FCC was going to mandate that cable companies open up the set-top box, that they allow their customers. I don't know what the status is in Canada, but at least allow their customers in the U.S. To buy a non-Comcast or a non-Cox or a non-Time Warner or whatever it is now, Spectrum box. And that potentially opened up a market for Apple to make the new set-top box, which would have been great. I suspect, what has happened now with after the election is the Congress has asked the FCC to just stop. So they've stopped. Nothing more is going to come out of the FCC. And it would be my guess, although it is completely a guess, that the new administration will back down on things like that. That's the kind of regulation, or it's seen as regulation. I think it's, in a way, deregulation. It's opening up. But that seems to be the kind of regulations that our Republican Congress and our Republican White House don't want the FCC to do. So if any company, Apple, let's say, bet that set-top boxes would be a new market, I think now's the time to rethink that bet.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be changed. It could be a change in leadership at the FCC and in Congress can really upset a lot of tables. Now, a lot of things that were kind of sacrosanct, or rather seem to be a steady sort of predictable thing for designing the next 2 or 3 years of your business, they're now back on the table. Things like, well, what if we let your cable company throttle back Netflix because we want to get people to subscribe to our own Comcast-based video streaming services, and what if we want to make it so that you can't have unapproved devices on your router because we're going to say that the communication layer between your cable modem and your device is a secure, protected layer that cannot be violated without violating the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So you get into this is why you don't like the fact that you have large companies like Apple and Google that have like a big, important, expensive presence in Washington, but sometimes it's not so much them lobbying to get things that are advantageous to Apple. Oftentimes it's trying to figure out that we have a device ready to go. We have the box art all ready to go. We have our engineer is standing by in front of the white back screen to talk about the design of this thing. But we know that if they pass this law or if they change this law, this thing will become almost completely valueless to anybody. Won't be able to sell it. So it's a tough situation for any company to be in, particularly if you want to innovate beyond beyond the status quo's desire to allow innovation to happen.
If I were a Ladbroke bookie taking bets on opening up the set-top box at this point, I'd say that is dead. And so if Apple thought that, and that would have been by the way, that would have been a great future for an Apple TV to become your cable box.
Or your Xbox, or your PlayStation. I mean, it would have been great for so many of those.
Oh, the cable companies didn't want to do cable cards, and they were forced to do it by the FCC.
We don't have them in Canada. We don't have. We're not allowed to have cable cards, and we're not allowed to. And the broadcast flag is not. There's no prohibition. Yeah,
you can't do a TiVo. So I replaced the god awful Comcast X1 DVR system with TiVos at great expense, I might add, because you not only have to buy the TiVo, which is pricey, but then you have to buy a subscription so you get a cable guide. But I have 3 TiVos, and I'm able to use them with the cable card. I wonder how long that's going to last.
Yeah. Yep. We have to remember that so many of the stuff that we take for granted started off as a point of view that other people consider quaint. There's a reason why cable companies are required to have all local access channels unscrambled, so that if there's just conduit running into your house, you can legally run a cable from that conduit in your apartment to the back of your TV set and at least get the local broadcast stations for free. And that was based on the argument some years ago that there should be free over the air network cable, that people should not be forced to pay for that which is broadcast for free. And that's just an opinion, because cable companies, of course, can make the argument, oh, they're still using our network and we still have to send trucks out to maintain those cables. We shouldn't allow people to have that stuff for free. But again, there was this very, very positive, but to some people's point of view, quaint notion that free TV is a basic inalienable human right. And so that also could go rather quickly. So all this stuff, it's kind of shocking sometimes to realize that a lot of stuff that you assume is just the way that we've developed our nation, we're basically standing on sand. One big wave could wipe it all out.
And uncertainty is always the real threat to all of this, because if companies know, well, this is going to happen, they can plan for the future. At this point, we're really in this kind of uncertain situation. And I imagine, there's conversations going on at Apple that are basically, well, what can we be sure is going to be a business next year and going forward? And it's pretty obvious. It's the iPhone. And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I do want to talk about I finally have caught up with you, Rene. I finally got the MacBook Pro. I bought a 13 for Lisa and a 15 for me. I'm using it right now.
And you got Doom running in the Touch Bar, right?
Yeah, I hear you can put Doom on the Touch Bar. I haven't done that yet.
It's a rite of passage for any embedded system.
Got to have Doom on it.
Yeah.
How do you play it? Is it like
oddly?
I mean, I just assume you. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Well,
I just like that it exists.
It's a bar bet sort of thing. Okay, see, I got Doom running.
It.
Give me my $20.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty cool.
Kotaku, 19 hours ago, someone should get Doom running in the MacBook Pro's Touch Bar. Hours later, it is. You want to see the video? This is what it looks like. I don't know if this is really a good use.
I'm waiting for Super Mario Run.
OMG. It's kind of squished down.
Yeah.
At least you get the music. That's crazy. That is crazy.
It would be a good screen for like Lawrence of Arabia, like those big
Cinerama.
In like 2.66 to 1 ratio.
Oh, it'd be perfect for Lawrence of Arabia. You wouldn't even have to have pillar boxes.
Oh my God, I love it. It's an ARM chip in there, right?
There's an ARM chip that manages the Touch ID process, but it's also hooked up into the main computer for a lot of the basic functionality.
So I wonder where that display is coming from.
I'm guessing it's on the Mac side.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I want to download it and play it right now. We'll take a break, come back with more Rene Ritchie from iMore.com, from the Chicago Sun-Times, Andy Ihnatko. Our show today brought to you by FreshBooks. If you're a freelancer, a small business person, not short business person, small business person, you might be interested in a way that makes something that makes your life a lot easier. I know I didn't get into business because you loved invoicing, because you loved bookkeeping. Well, I guess if you're a bookkeeper, maybe you did. I'm not a bookkeeper. In fact, I'm terrible at it. But so as a result, when I had to do invoices at the end of the month, I never sent them out. I just groaned. But there is something I learned, and I'd like to pass this along to you. If you don't invoice people, you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, pretty soon you're out of business. In fact, I was talking to the FreshBooks guys. They were showing me the brand new FreshBooks interface, which is amazing, really great. And they said a surprisingly large number, like more than half of freelancers or small businesses, if you came to them and said, "Did you make a profit this year?" wouldn't really know. They would say, "Well, I'm I'm paying my bills. I don't know. How much of a profit did you make?" I don't know. FreshBooks will tell you that. It's on the front page with this new interface. FreshBooks starts with making your invoices, and it does it so quickly you can create a new invoice in less than 30 seconds. It looks professional, has your logo, does everything you need. There's no formatting, no formulas, just great invoices. And when you send one out, FreshBooks can show you when the client looks at it, which is very handy if you have one of those clients who say, "Well, I didn't get the invoice." And by the way, most clients want to pay but they don't like paying the bills any more than you like sending the bills. So FreshBooks makes it very easy by putting a button in there that lets them pay online. In fact, according to FreshBooks research, you get paid up to 4 days faster because of this little button. They also have a super handy deposit feature, which allows you to invoice for payment up front when you're kicking off a project, so you don't have to pay out of pocket. Clients love FreshBooks as much as you do. And the beauty of this is because you're using FreshBooks to track your invoices, to keep track of expenses, you can actually use the FreshBooks app to snap pictures of expenses, receipts, and so forth, get them right into FreshBooks. You have a profit and loss statement updated in real time. You know what accounts are outstanding, what you've received, what you've spent. Suddenly, you do have an answer to the question, how's my business doing? You can see with a glance what you're owed, what's overdue, whether you're in the red, whether you're making money, and how much money. The notification center is like a personal assistant that tells you what's changed in your business since the last time you visited and what should be dealt with, like overdue invoices. They've got a website. You'll get a web portal, but the apps are fantastic on iOS and Android. You can do time tracking in both the app and on the website. It really is the best way to do this. Take a look. This is a brand new interface. If you're a FreshBooks user already, you have the choice of going to the new dashboard if you want. I would suggest you at least take a look at it. They're offering a 30-day unrestricted free trial right now. If you want it, just go to the FreshBooks site, freshbooks.com/MacBreak. And if you do me a favor when they say, well, how did you hear about us? Please say MacBreak Weekly. That way we'll all get credit for your visit. Start your 30-day free trial today. Even if you're not sure if you want to take a look at this or you need it, I would try it. It changed my life. freshbooks.com/MacBreak. And don't forget to mention how you heard about it. Andy Iannacco, Rene Ritchie, and the new MacBook Pro. So, Rene.
Yes, sir.
Couple of things.
Hold on. I'm going to gird myself.
No. It's not bad.
Just don't go for the face. Don't go for the face.
It's not bad. The jury's still out, but I'm getting less and less convinced that the touchpad is a significant feature. It's cool. I love logging in with my fingerprint. Not that Apple invented that, by the way. No. This has been around for some time on PCs. But I do really love that. And you can buy things with your fingerprint. Having Touch ID is great, and I'm so glad they put that in. But I don't find myself using the trackpad that often, even on apps like, already Pixelmator, for instance, supports the trackpad. I don't find it much easier to use a trackpad than just menus or mouse. And the problem I have with it, which was the problem I thought I'd have, which is if you're a touch typist, you don't want to be checking the keyboard to see what you can do. That just doesn't comport with the way you've been taught to use a computer. So this is not definitive yet, but I'm coming more and more to the conclusion that the touchpad is not, it's cool, but not necessarily a must-have. On the other hand, Andy, I find the keyboard better, and we've been playing with it a little bit, and the difference is it's got an audible click. And the problem I had with the MacBook keyboard is I felt like I was stubbing my finger. I'd type, and it would stop prematurely, like a step on a staircase that's just a little short. You just, that's not, and I thought I'd get used to it, and I didn't over a year of using the MacBook pretty regularly, like every night. Didn't get used to it. This one it's the click. I don't think it's any less shallow, but there's just an audible signal that you've typed the thing, and I'm much more accurate with it. It's not as good as the full travel keyboards of earlier MacBooks, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Well, they'll put that on a bus ad real soon. The new MacBook Pro, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be.
It's highly divisive.
Oh, it's still bad.
Regardless of anyone's personal
legally, we have to confess that it's still a very, very bad keyboard. I don't think it's bad. But it's not as bad.
I don't think it's bad. Okay. And by the way, we had Kyle Wiens of iFixit was on the new screensavers. He did a teardown of it, and he said this it's still that new switch, but the butterfly switch, but it is a different switch. They've modified it, so
it's a little domier. The dome is domier.
Yeah. So I think that was an important improvement, and I'd like to see them put that on the MacBook as well. The screen is spectacular. You're absolutely right, Rene, on that. It is a beautiful, rich screen that just looks fantastic. It's nice to
You
have
put it next to the old MacBook Pro, you really see the differences in the reds and the greens because you get, and then you go back, it's like, oh, why is my display kind of muddy?
I was skeptical about the giant trackpad, which is actually
the California King size.
Yeah, it's actually bigger than an iPhone 7 Plus. But it doesn't. Unlike Joanna Stern, who complained that she was getting stray wrist movements while she typed. The wrist rejection is perfect. I haven't had any problem.
I can't
with
even
that.
if I forced it, if I push my wrist down and kind of drag it, it'll move the cursor like a couple millimeters.
Yeah,
but I can't get it to
Why is it bigger? Is there a functional reason, or is it just a design thing?
They wanted more travel on it, and the nice thing about removing the mechanics is they don't have to care anymore if there's switches underneath it, and there's no hinge anymore either. And before, when you had the hinge, there was no pressure on the top and all the pressure at the bottom. So now it's bigger because they can make it bigger, and that's their main form of touch input on the Mac. So they wanted to make it as big as possible.
Yeah, I mean, in many cases, I feel like the touchpad and this giant trackpad are really Apple's response to the lack of touch on the screen. And I don't, I can live with that touch on the screen. I like it, but it's not. It's kind of like the Touch Bar. It's not. It's it's okay, but
the problem you have with all the touch stuff is that on a classic PC, and the Mac is a classic PC, you can never count on touch being there, which means you can't make it core to the operating system, or half or more of your customers won't be able to use their computer. So it always has to be an added benefit, and then when it's an added benefit, nobody likes to learn a new habit, so they just don't, and then nobody uses it.
That's the conundrum that Microsoft is dealing with, right? Is how do we handle this, because we want to give you touch.
Again, both Microsoft and Google have done a really good job of turning touch into something that if you have it, you will find ways to use it. You will enjoy it. You will find it an enhancement. If you don't have it, you really won't notice that it's missing. There's no point at which you're doing something in a clumsy way because you don't have a machine with touch. And the other side of that is, just as Rene said, with what Apple did with Wi-Fi, by making the case that Wi-Fi and wireless is important, they made it important. By making the case with Microsoft that touch on a desktop machine is important, they made it important, and now most people, you'll only have a non-touch device on a machine where the price really has to be as dirt cheap as possible. It's hard to find a machine that doesn't have touch. Even Chromebooks that cost like $200 have touch, $250 have touch. So. There's a way to do it.
I mean, a lot of the ones that I have friends, and bless them, they just don't upgrade, and they're from the era of non-touch devices, and they all free Windows 10. That's amazing. So now they have Windows 10 running on these circa, I guess, Windows XP or whatever laptops and desktops.
Yeah, that's not a happy day. Running XP on anything is anything that doesn't have that doesn't have a Pentium Inside sticker on it is not a very happy day.
Titanium or bust.
Yeah, but just you always have to make sure you understand that how important a company's beliefs are. That this is an extension of Apple's belief that touch has no port. It just doesn't make sense on a desktop machine, and that's perfectly fine. And they're prosecuting that idea throughout the rest of their line. It doesn't mean that other companies are wrong, because they believe that you absolutely do have a place for touch on a desktop machine. You just have to make sure you're designed for it. And so it's one of the things that's just kind of got me interested, especially with the 2016 MacBook Pro, is that so. I touched on this last week, that I'm sort of getting that sort of deja vu when companies realize that, oh my God, we've made all of our investment in phones into like clicky keyboards and like stylus-based touchscreens, and now this other company is going to eat our lunch because clearly multi-touch and virtual keyboards are the future, but we're screwed because we haven't made plans for that. I know, we'll make ways to make it look like that we have some sort of a touch system. And that's why it gives me this deja vu when Apple's saying, look, you can touch emoji on this tiny little second screen we've put you. And look, we've made the touchpad, the trackpad even bigger, so you can do all of those multi-touch gestures that, of course, come so instinctively to you on a keyboard when you're looking at a screen that's about 10 miles away. It's like, we're not screwed. We definitely backed the right horse here.
Yeah,
no, I think you're right, but I think it's even finer grained than that. I don't think it's that they don't believe in touch on the desktop. I think they don't believe in touch on Mac OS just because of how long it would take to actually make Mac OS touch compatible. And they're putting all the wood behind the arrow that is iPad, for example, iPad Pro. They call it a computer now, and it doesn't do everything the Mac does. But if it took them 4 to 5 years to get Mac OS, maybe even 2 years to get Mac OS to be a decent touch machine, putting 2 years into the iPad Pro, and I mean they have iOS running on MacBooks and running on iMacs and with touchscreens and things like that. But I just don't think they're ready for prime time. And Apple is exactly the company that says we don't believe in video on iPods until they put video on an iPod, and then it's we finally cracked this. Then this is the way touch is meant to be done, and we'll see the unveiling. And they'll invent touch on a desktop computer.
All of you idiots who bought Windows 10 machines, we're here to rescue you because we know you've been brave. You've been pretending you've been happy with these touch-based screens. We know you've been just putting up a brave front. Yeah, the
you
MacBook
had that
Pro,
Nomad.
MacBook
You
Pro,
had that Squirtle.
Yeah,
the
MacBook Pro, and this I hope this doesn't come across sounding more strong than it actually means. This is just a thought that an impression that it gave me. The more I look at it, the more I use it, the more I play with it. It really does seem like this is as I am the master of buying a car with 75,000 miles and driving it until it just disintegrates like the Bluesmobile. I'm familiar with the syndrome where you're like, okay, there's a dent in the hood, but I'm not going to fix it because you know what? I'm not going to have this car in 2 years anyway. Or how much would it cost to get a stereo that could have Bluetooth natively without a dongle? That much? Well, again, I mean, there's no future in this car, so I'll just I'll just make a solution that's not optimal, but it will last me until this thing ends. I'm seeing a lot of that in the MacBook Pro. I'm seeing a lot of this isn't a really great way to solve this problem, but it will do until we finally cancel the Mac forever, which we all know. Oh, we're not supposed to say that, but there is a circled date somewhere on a calendar somewhere in that new campus. It doesn't look like stuff that is. This is a brilliant idea. This is a natural evolution for this platform. This is the future of computing. It really seems more like this is how to make this get another few years out of the platform, because we're not really interested in investing and making it relevant for the next 5 or 10 years.
There's, also there are other issues. I'll talk about those in a second. Although just one other thing I do like, and is the 4 Type-C ports. I know everybody talks about dongle hell, and I have my Apple dongle case.
Your utility belt of dongles?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I carry a laptop case, and of course, in the laptop case, I have all the, adapters and Type-C cables and stuff. And
I reached down, Batarang, no. USB port, there it is. Grappling gun, no. Okay, Thunderbolt port, there it is.
Well, for instance, I've got this Logitech mouse, and the Logitech mouse, of course, has a USB type, little dongle that you put into the laptop, except I can't use it with that, so I have to put an extender on it that makes it really ugly and dangerous because I could easily break it off. It's things like that kind of, I don't know what to do about that. I guess I won't be using this mouse, right? So, and I suppose in time there'll be Type-C connectors for mice and things like that, or maybe
I would say use a Magic Mouse, but even I can't.
I can't be that
cool. I can't be that
cool. Horrible.
Yeah, no.
But if you want to use a mouse with your laptop, you're going to be using an adapter so that the mouse can plug into the laptop.
Or a straight Bluetooth wireless.
And I have the one that came out with the MacBook. This is the $79 adapter, giant Apple adapter that goes Type-C to Type-C, HDMI, and USB. What is that? Old USB Type 2?
USB-A.
A, that's it.
Yeah. And no British naval connector on that one? Tisk, tisk.
So I could plug this in and then plug a mouse into that. By the way, the first time I plugged this into the new MacBook Pro, I had to do a firmware update.
Really?
For a dongle. I never heard of that.
Dongleware.
So, so I had to download and install. Yeah. I don't think the update went to the dongle. I think it was to the MacBook Pro, but I'm not clear on that. But I do like having 4 Thunderbolt 3 Type-C ports on there. In fact, Otherworld Computing just announced today their dock, and I immediately ordered one. Yep. This is the Thunderbolt 3 dock. They say 13 ports, endless possibilities. It's $279 if you pre-order. But the idea is that you can now have 2 4K monitors hooked up, and you've got Ethernet and all this stuff. FireWire 800, SPDIF.
It's like the back of an iMac.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do think that there's the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh. I do think I'm not a big fan of the dongle world. However, it is nice that you have 4 ports that can be whatever port you need them to be. Right. Sometimes oddly enough, there are some times where you do actually want 2 or 3 different monitors hooked up to your thing, and you don't have to be stuck with just 2 display ports or just 2 of these. And sometimes you do need as many high-speed ports as you can possibly get, and you can make them multiple high-speed ports. Again, it would be nice to be able to leave the house without something in the bag. And so also after getting $2,000 out of me, oh, by the way, don't close that checkbook yet.
Right. It is thinner and noticeably lighter. I mean, it does feel very elegant in the hand when you carry it around. And, this is where Apple really excels. But I think we pay a very high price for this new thinness and lightness. And this is where I really... And maybe you heard Owen J.J. Stone's rant about this on Sunday. I really feel like
great.
Yeah, he kind of went off on Apple, and partly, of course, is the price, because these are more expensive than the old MacBook Pros. They're really quite pricey. But also, I was very disappointed. We talked to Kyle Wiens at iFixit. They do the teardowns. They tore it down. They gave it a repairability score of 1 out of 10, which is as low as you can go. I asked him if there's a 0. He said, well, I guess there might be, but...
Wait for next year's model.
Mostly because everything is soldered on the motherboard. If one of these ports goes bad, you're replacing the logic board. There's no way to fix that without replacing the logic board, unless you've got some master micro solderer genius at your command. There's also design choices that bother me a little bit. For instance, these speaker grills on the side are not speaker grills. They're just holes. The speakers are ported on the bottom on these vents. The speaker grills are not connected to the speakers. They are basically cosmetic. This is Mr. Jony Ive doing his thing. And that offends my sensibility. I kind of want form to follow function. And this is a case of form being completely devoid of function. But the biggest issue for me, and it's not Apple's problem exclusively, is Kyle said these are virtually unrecyclable because the batteries are so heavily glued in. Most recyclers are just not going to be able to take the battery out. They're not going to have the means to do so. And as a result, they're just going to throw it in a pile because you can't grind it down without taking out the battery. As we know, lithium-ion batteries, you probably don't want to puncture them in any way.
I watched that show, and I have a lot of respect for Kyle Wiens, but that's a hell of an accusation. I think Apple takes huge pride in their certification and their recycling programs, and they invented a robot to recycle iPhones.
Yeah, I think it's a lie. I think this is a PR lie from Apple.
I think they would get an enormous amount. Like they would either the supplier would get in so much trouble from Apple, or Apple would get in so much trouble for lying about it that it's sort of like if I said, Bob doesn't file his taxes, and you got to do a lot of investigative, like you've got to do like the BuzzFeed job or like the Washington Post style job and actually show me your work before you just can't make an accusation like that. I think it's way too incendiary.
Well, I agree, and I would hope that somebody will do that work, and let's get some reporting on this.
But you can't say my friend told me that you can't recycle. I mean, to me, that's reckless.
What he said, well, he talks to recyclers, and third-party recyclers don't want to go near him. I asked him about Apple. Apple has its own recycling plan. He says, I know the company that does it. They have the same exact problem. So this notion that Apple can recycle it comes completely from just assuming that Apple can recycle it, that they wouldn't say that if they couldn't.
And people were shocked. Like the basic idea I got back is that we would be absolutely flabbergasted if that was the case. And that's from people who should know about those things. So again, like either Apple has a massive problem with their suppliers that they're completely unaware of, and should take immediate action to resolve, or that's a rather reckless charge that has not been substantiated by the proper amount of even.
Well, would you or somebody do me a favor and let's research this? Let's find out. Let's talk to Apple's recyclers.
I'm not an investigative journalist, but I will ask around. But I hope like someone like the BuzzFeeds or Washington Post or someone takes it up, because there are problems with suppliers. We run into them all the time, and this is something that if it is true, absolutely needs to be given proper attention.
Yeah, there are a lot of claims that I hear where over time you start to learn to see the waffle language in place, where they can say, we think that you can say that this is the best camera that's ever been put in a phone, and you're listening for the asterisk, and you hear the asterisk. So okay, that's fine. It's going to be based on a set of rules that they have decided constitutes the best camera ever put in a phone. And then there's where they say something so explicit that either this is a company that is absolutely unafraid by by being smitten by the hand of God, that they will say or do anything, or they're a company that
let me read you Apple's environmental statement. You tell me if this convinces you that Apple can recycle its laptops. We're as committed as this is the only part of this environmental statement that talks about this. We're as committed as ever to conserving precious resources. In 2015, we diverted more than 89 million pounds of e-waste from landfills. And more recently, we introduced Liam, a line of robots that can disassemble an iPhone every 11 seconds and sort its high-quality components so they can be recycled, reducing the need to mine those resources from the earth. It's an experiment in recycling technology. We hope this kind of thinking will inspire others. That's it. Yeah. That's it. They're talking about the iPhone, and they're not even saying Liam does this for every iPhone. They're saying it's an experiment. Now, I want to know how they diverted more than 89 million pounds of e-waste from landfills and what it was. Maybe they're just recycling boxes. It doesn't mean they're recycling these. I don't think they're making a claim that they're recycling these.
I think they have made that claim, but it is probably bound by the limits of what their technology can accomplish, and that may or may not be,
And I should point out that that's true of any phone and all of these devices we have as consumers, kind of pushed companies to making them thinner, lighter, and that means built-in batteries that are difficult to remove. And I think as a consumer, I want to start looking back to the days when I could remove the battery. It's good for consumers. It means we could take the battery out, put in a new one, that the device does not need a major repair when the battery inevitably dies, as it will in a few years. And it's good for the environment.
I don't know if I want anybody going near a lithium-ion battery anymore, though.
Yeah.
Well, we did it for years. We removed batteries from laptops, Apple laptops and others for years. We removed batteries from phones for years.
Yeah, they're denser, and you just you hear stories about companies replacing them, and then little girls blowing up with them. And I know they're rare, but I just don't know if people. It's like my father used to repair every car. He used to rebuild every car we had, and I'd sit there with him, and he'd do all that work. And now he buys a car, opens up the hood, and has no idea what it looks like anymore. And it's a symbol of we've gone from the point where you actually had to have a mechanic in the early 1900s sitting in a car with you in case it broke down as you were winding it up on its way, to a point where people could pretty much figure out how to maintain their cars, to a point where you open up some of these electrical cars and it might as well be like a NASA or an Air Force jet that you're opening up. And I think computers are going the same way. They're becoming appliances. And people who I used to assemble computers for when I worked in enterprise. We would get a whole bunch of them. We'd buy them from a reseller. We'd sit there and rebuild them. And I loved that. That was fantastic. But that's not how most people interact with computers anymore, nor should most people have to know how to do all that kind of stuff. And these are better computers for them.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we don't necessarily want to be able to fix our computers ourselves. But if a trackpad, this is what happened to me with my not the last MacBook, but the one previous to that, the trackpad stopped working. And any other previous Macintosh that I had, it would be I could take it someplace and they'll remove the trackpad, they'll replace the trackpad. And when I try to figure out how much there's plenty of life left in this machine, how much it's going to cost to get it fixed, and it was, well, unfortunately, the trackpad is integral to the entire bottom plate of the entire plate of the computer, and the keyboard is also integral to that as well. So we're basically going to have to sell you an $800 component to replace what was probably a 20-cent switch that failed. And this is the sort of trouble that we're getting into, where we cannot fix anything. The answer is, well, you know what? Your computer is 2 years and 3 months old. It had a good run. The fact that the A key on the keyboard no longer works, lots of other stuff is probably, we should just sell you a brand new computer, shouldn't we? It is kind of offensive, the idea that for reasons that are very dogmatic, these computers, and many of the reasons for designing and building these computers this way are very dogmatic and not functional, that we are giving away the idea that we can, like my old cars, drive them until they're like the Bluesmobile and they just collapse into component molecules. It's basically they use them until something costs too much to fix and it's something trivial and stupid, and then you're expected to say, well, you should buy another $1,000 one of those as well. Why would you want to keep this one anyway? It's not a good trend. And although I do think that Apple probably has a plan for recycling these things, I think that intrinsically they do put recyclability into the design spec of everything that they put onto blueprints. It might not be obvious, it might not be easy, but I think they will have a plan for it. I think it's silly, the idea that we're assuming that if anything goes wrong with this computer, the entire thing gets chucked in the trash. It's not going to be possible to fix anything because we wanted an extra 3 millimeters of thinness, and that's why if you don't buy Apple Care warranty, every repair cost is buy a brand new computer. That's stupid.
Well, it's easy to figure out. Apple says they send all their recycling to Power On Services, which is a Roseville, California company. They mostly try to reuse, resell or recycle. But they do recycling. And if somebody wants to do the legwork on this, I'd be very interested in knowing exactly what it's doing and whether they are able to recycle this. And I would love to know how much energy Apple puts into it. The fact is, they certainly are prioritizing thinness and lightness over recyclability. They're gluing those batteries in like a mother. So
they're essentially becoming iPads.
They are. This is made like an iPad with no user serviceable parts and no upgradable parts. This is very much made like an iPad.
And I don't disagree with Andy. I'm a traditional computerist, and I would love to do all those things. I have dents in my car, and I went to get them fixed, and they said, "Oh, your car, this is one whole panel. You can't just take apart this little thing and fix that. You've got to replace the entire." And how much is that? And I was like, "Oh my God, that's so much money." So I have these dents on the side of my car now, and it's because they've created all these manufacturing, and they use everything as part of the rigid shell that makes the car stronger, or part of the crumple zone. And it's this trade-off. Apple was talking about how dense these new MacBooks are and how rigid they are, and how they don't have as much play, and that to them is a huge feature. But that comes because they're building the entire frame to be one big part that makes them more rigid. And it's this entire trade-off. So you have easier manufacturing and a more solid computer, but if anything goes wrong, God help you, because it's all one giant linked parts.
And I would like to see the Apple language that says we do recycle this fully. And frankly, I'm looking everywhere in Apple's statements.
Yeah, they may not say it. I just assume that they're not. Like, if you say they're lying about recycling, that's different than saying they don't recycle.
They're not saying they do recycle. They're implying they do. And even this Liam, which got a lot of attention, is an experiment. They say, not a final. They're not even asserting that it's recycling every iPhone.
It'd be nice to have a report the way that they do supplier responsibility reports and diversity reports that talks about, and then you get
most of their recycling stuff focuses on their packaging, on reusing rather than recycling. I'd like to see something more specific, and I think this is a fertile territory for somebody who's wants to do some enterprise reporting.
And some people say, "Oh, you're holding Apple to a higher standard." Everybody
everybody
gets so much attention. They deserve it.
Yeah,
they deserve the amount. No, but they get so much attention. They deserve an equal amount of attention on everything. So if there's 8 companies and none of them are recycling, Apple still gets more attention. So give them more attention about not recycling, because it will trickle down to the industry.
And the real point is they're designing stuff intentionally, to be thinner and more compact. We know for sure it's not upgradable. And I would at least trust Kyle to the point where I'd say it's not repairable.
No, they don't. Yeah, they don't value repairability. They want you to take it back to the Apple Store.
That's right. And Apple has tools to repair it, and it may well be Apple has tools to remove the batteries. I'm sure they do, but I think they're moving let's say they're moving in a direction that makes it more and more difficult to recycle. And what is almost certainly the case, if you are going to recycle a MacBook Pro, you should give it to Apple to recycle, because if nobody besides Apple seems to have any clue as to how to recycle it. I believe that's also true.
I think they take it in for free. I think in most of those places, if you want to recycle it.
Yeah, Apple wants it back. There's no question they would like to recycle it for you.
Oh yeah, because they're the only company that could say, "Wow, this thing got recycled because it only had 3 busted keys. Hey, look, we're going to reclaim that perfectly good screen. We're going to reclaim that perfectly good trackpad, and we're going to put that back in the pipeline."
No, because it's not operable. It's not operable with any of the new stuff, Andy. It's just not compatible anymore.
And by the way, interesting story about the 16 gigs of RAM. We remember Phil Schiller said because of battery life, and this in fact may really be the case. A great article at Mac Daddy kind of a deeply technical article at MacDaddy talking about low-power RAM, low-power DDR RAM, and which low-power DDR RAM Apple could use with the Intel chipset that they're using, and the limitations. In order to go above 16 gigabytes of RAM, they would have to use a different system, and it would actually use considerably more power. I didn't realize how much power RAM uses in a.
I mean, I get a lot of the. It's again, this is an entirely a game of compromise. Is why don't they use Kaby Lake? Well, the quad core Kaby Lakes, the ones with Intel Iris graphics, they aren't ready yet. Why don't they use 32 gigabytes of RAM? Well, the LPDDR support is not yet there yet. Why did they use AMD and not NVIDIA? Well, AMD would let them do basically anything they want with the chip, and they can drive the 5K monitor they want to drive with it. Where NVIDIA is a whole different deal. I mean, like all of these are compromises to real world manufacturing choices.
Essentially, I think if I can boil it down, Apple's using a mobile platform and a mobile memory, and in order to go past 16 gigs, they would have to use desktop class memory, DDR4 memory, instead of the DDR3 they're using. But the problem is DDR4 memory uses more than twice as much wattage. The current RAM is about 1.5 watts. DDR4 would use 3 to 5 watts, which would end up being about 20% of the overall system power usage just to refresh the RAM.
Well, and you're putting in more chips, so you have more power just from the extra chips you're putting in for the more memory.
So that's credible. As I always tell people, look, if you're choosing Apple, you're going to choose to do it the Apple way. And if you don't want to do it the Apple way, there's no point in complaining about it. Just you're going to have to get
buy
somebody...
HP.
Buy an HP.
Lenovo.
Yeah. Because this is what the decisions Apple made. But it's good to see the technical reasons behind it.
I think I've decided that if I ever quit journalism and decide to do a hardware startup, I'm going to create a laptop company. The name of the company is going to be 3/4 of an inch, where every single thing we make is no thinner than 3/4 of an inch. And our motto is going to be, we're going to see how much we can put into this, how much usability, how much repairability, how much recyclability we can put into this. If we just stick with, if we just take all of our engineers at hiring, question number one is, are you okay with never making anything thinner than 3/4 of an inch? I'm serious. If you ask us to, hey, we got all this dead air space, we will say, how can you make use of that dead air space, either to remove a fan or do something else? I think that that's an interesting engineering challenge to say that if you know that you have that hard limit, that you can't make it thinner than that, what can you do with that space? I think you can make some rather exciting machines with that limitation.
But then Steve Jobs will throw into a fish tank. You'll see air bubbles, and he'll fire you on the spot. It's just
that's okay. No, we'll say, but Steve, because it's 3/4 of an inch, that means we can use this incredibly exotic metal that makes absolutely no sense, but is very exciting from a design point of view. And he'd say, I like the cut of your jib, young man.
There was
have a rich fantasy life, don't you, Andy?
There's a famous Montreal hamburger joint called Dick Ann's where they have a little door at the front. Every hamburger has to be thin enough to slip underneath the door.
Oh, that's
when
funny.
when they serve it to you. Yeah.
I don't know if thin in hamburgers is really what we're going for here.
You just get lots of them. That's their genius. Is you have to buy many of them.
Oh, it's like the White Castle, the sliders. Apple has released, anyway, on balance, I love this notebook because I'm not the kind of person that needs more than 16 gigs of RAM or needs a special graphics capability. I did buy the top of the line 15-inch. It's very fast. It looks beautiful. I use it all the time, and I'm very happy with it. And I don't hate the keyboard, which is, better than I expected, frankly. So if you can afford it, I think this is Apple's made a lovely piece of kit, as Ian Thompson would say. Actually, might not say that, but that's how he would say it. And what's great about this? No comic book keycaps. I don't know. They actually have letters on the keycaps this time, which is just fantastic for me. I can type once again.
Just wait until they're changeable letters. OLED keys.
I did pre-order that Otherworld Computing dock because I would eventually like to get those new LG 5K monitor or two for my home office. Apple has released a document on using 4K displays, 5K displays, and Ultra HD TVs with your Mac. Why is my Mac jumping?
It's the dongle.
It's the dongle?
No, I don't know.
It is. It may be the dongle. All right. Let me get out my Apple. We're using some SIG dongle. SIIG. So
it's amazing you haven't burst into flames already.
I can't believe the failure. We're having a dongle issue here. So let me I'll lose my Ethernet, but I can survive without that. I do have a dongle for the Ethernet if I decide I want to double. I'd have to double dongle. All right, so now, how about now, Karsten? Does it look better using the Apple dongle? Yep. Well, so much for SIG. Wow. It's also, by the way, hotter than heck. This thing is burning. That's why you pay $79 for an Apple dongle. How much was the SIG dongle?
It's
nothing.
It's
$15.
it's silly, but it's sometimes you want a cable that's got a good cord and is well insulated, all that things.
Well, and here's the good news. I also purchased a Apple brand Ethernet adapter, and somewhere in here I have the adapter that gets me from USB Type A to USB Type C, and I think with the addition of that, I can dongle into, I'm sure it's in here somewhere. Is it on there? Oh, just plug it in, right? Okay, there we go. That's right, I have this. So now I've double dongled, and
I double dongled, dare you.
All should be well. Wow.
Show title.
Wow. Yeah. Every time I mention the word dongle, people will say it should be a show title, but
see, this is how badly Apple has beaten us down with the ubiquity of dongles. We no longer giggle when we hear that word.
Right.
That's not right.
It's not funny anymore.
That's not right.
Dingle your dongle if you don't.
My double dongle's dangling. We got a dangle dongle problem here.
Okay, let's move on.
Down on dongles.
Got a short title at least.
So this is a good document to read if you're thinking about driving a 5K display off of your Mac. This is actually kind of challenging. There's the MST, for multiple stream versus SST, and all of that. And
we don't have DisplayPort 1.4 yet.
The problem with single stream is its lower refresh rate is 30 hertz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a multi-stream display, you can do it with the new MacBook Pro. That's the good news. But you have to have the Radeon R9 M370X graphics card on the...
Yeah, you're essentially stitching to... Because, again, like Intel has pushed the DisplayPort. It was supposed to be in Skylake, then it was supposed to be in Kaby Lake, and then it was supposed to be in Cannon Lake, and now we have Coffee Lake in between those, and I want it to be called Coffee Cake because it makes me hungry.
Such a mess.
But they just can't... They have not made the technology available. So what Apple did internally with the iMac 5K was stitch two displays together through their custom timing controller, and now they're doing the same thing through the AMD card, which is, basically you have two displays, and if those aren't done well, it looks like this, which is horrible. So it has to be properly controlled, and you're limited in what you can use.
But the good news is if you have the new MacBook Pro, you can use HDMI with a 4K display to get 60 hertz refresh, and that really does look better. You do want the 60 hertz if you can do it. All right, time for a break. More to come in just a moment. Andy Anako, Chicago Sun-Times, and the CU Boulder hat, which I love. Because
there you go.
My son's a buff, as they say.
Quality material.
Yes. Made from the hides of tame bison. also Rene Ritchie from iMore.com, where they are currently constructing, it looks like the Death Star behind them. We're going to have to investigate this new weapons system that iMore is creating.
Name the target.
Our show today, just make sure you have a ventilation port, okay? You don't want a Death Star overheating. And the chances of somebody dropping a bomb in there, that's smaller than a womp rat. Not going to happen. Our show today brought to you by Ring, the Ring Video Doorbell. Love my Ring. Again, yesterday, my Ring did its thing. I was in the shower, and I heard don, 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 because I have Ring going to my phone. See, this is a doorbell that attaches to your Wi-Fi, and it doesn't just ring your devices, your Mac. There's a Mac app, your phone, your Android or iOS device, but it also has a camera on it, HD camera on it, and a speaker and a microphone. So I can hear the doorbell ring, which I often don't hear. I can see who it is, and then I can even talk to them and say, hey, leave the package on the front porch, or, oh, hi, honey, I'm in the shower, whatever it is. And if you've got, what is it, ding and ditch, dong and ditch, ding dong ditch? Do you have kids who run up and ring your doorbell and run away? Well, you got them on crystal clear high-def video. Gotcha! I love the Ring Video Doorbell, and I'm not alone. Remember Richard Branson of Virgin just put a $28 million investment into Ring because I think he sees the future. And Ring has used that money to good advantage, expanding their line. So now they have the new Ring Pro doorbell. It's a little thinner, doesn't have the lithium-ion battery, so it does require a wired doorbell, but you then get a 1080p signal, and it's a kind of a smaller, kind of more svelte doorbell. I have the original Ring video doorbell, and I love it. By the way, this is one of the things you absolutely need to get when you get an IoT device like this, is updatable firmware. Ring is not only updatable, they update it all the time, and that is really critical to keeping a secure device on your network. So I'm very comfortable with the Ring, knowing these guys are putting the energy in. Not only do they develop a new Ring video doorbell, the Pro version, they also have the stick-up cam, which is essentially a battery-powered Ring doorbell without the doorbell. Still got the camera and the speaker and the microphone. You can put it anywhere. In fact, pair it with their solar cell, and you don't even need to give it power. You literally just put it on the wall, maybe part of the yard that your Ring doorbell doesn't see, and expand your capabilities. Video recording, motion sensing, see, hear, and speak with anybody, anywhere. This is easily the best security camera when you pair it with the solar panel because it charges up during the day and runs all night. Got great night vision, too. Love this. And they have the Ring chime, which you can plug into the wall, and that makes you extends the range of your doorbell using Wi-Fi. And, of course, we've got a bunch of these kits here, and any of the kits include the lighted sign to let the world know your system is secure, your house is secure. Get up to $150 off one of their Ring of Security kits right now when you go to ring.com/MacBreak. These are easy to install. I did it, which means anybody can do it. And it's just a great thing. We've had ours for more than a year now, and I couldn't live without it. Ring.com/MacBreak. This would make an excellent holiday gift for a family member. Maybe you have an older parent who, like my mom, is worried, it's hard for her to get to the front door when somebody rings the doorbell. It takes her a while to get there. This would be a great thing. She could say, I'm here, hold on a second, or leave the package, or, hi, grandkids, come on in. Ring.com/MacBreak for yourself, for a friend, for a family member, a great gift. Save up to $150 off that Ring of Security kit. Ring.com/MacBreak. We have talked all about Mac. Sometimes we do a show where we don't even mention Mac. And this was an all Mac show so far. So let's see. Is there anything to say about the iPhone? Well, apparently there are some iPhone 6 models that are randomly shutting down. Apple is aware of a problem that affects only a small number of phones, and they are offering you replacement batteries for those units. iPhone 6 and 6S, I guess.
Yeah.
This isn't the same thing as the touch disease, though. This is a different thing. No,
the touch disease was where the capacitive touch sensors were no longer responding on iPhone 6 Plus, probably because at some point they bent or dropped or something and became dysfunctional.
Yeah, Apple's saying they're admitting now touch disease, but they're saying it's because you dropped it.
Yeah, they're saying, yeah, and again, you can quibble with like how easy is it to do this. Right. So that's something that, and eventually, I'm guessing the EU will just force them to repair all of them because EU. But this is, like people like John Gruber were talking about this happening to them, where it would just shut down as though it had reached no battery state, but then you could power it back on.
Oh,
so it was something was miscalibrated, misdone, misdiagnosed.
But replacing the battery fixes it. So it sounds like it was in the battery itself, not in the firmware or software. The good news is if the battery issue has hit you, that's a free replacement. Yeah. For touch disease, it's a $149 replacement. That's still a better. That's a way to do it if you're having that problem rather than go to a third party.
Yeah.
Other sad news, you broke this story for me, Andy, because you were at the Mac Tech conference, and they had a surprise speaker at Mac Tech.
Yeah, Sal Soghoian, who is the czar of user scripting and automation at Apple. He's the head of AppleScript. He's the head of Automator. Basically, anything that lets you create your own kind of solution without having to fire up Xcode. He is the head of that team. Gave a really cool talk about something that might be my pick of the week if no one talks about it, but finished it by kind of shocking everybody by announcing that he has left Apple. that Apple has informed him that for business reasons, his position no longer exists. There is no longer a need for a product manager of automation technologies. And so after a nearly 20-year career at Apple, he is now a free agent. I get the impression that there's still some I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, but that's it. That's certainly not a good sign for the future of automation technologies at Apple, because as it was, I think that Apple was treating AppleScript and Automator as kind of like when you move into a house and the previous owners of the house had a big player piano in the basement, and you personally have no interest in a player piano, but it's too big and too cumbersome and too big of a job to remove it, so that's why it stays. I think that was Apple's attitudes towards AppleScript and Automator for several years now, and now it looks. I feel as though this is a sign that if you get rid of Sal, that must be the reason why you just have. That's certainly not reassuring for anybody who worries that there's no future for that stuff at Apple. It's also it's not a very well kept secret that Sal is just one of those guys that you want on your team. You want to be the head of your team. If there's something that's important to your company, you want someone like Sal to be the champion of it. There's so many great stories about times where some product manager of some application at Apple was waffling on including AppleScript support or Automator support, and that manager has Sal's sneaker prints on the top of their desk from a point at which he was jumping up and down on it to convince them how important it was that their apps support Automator and AppleScript. So the reason why AppleScript and Automator could do so many great things is not because of a huge company support behind it, but because this one product manager was defending their users and to make their stuff great. So it's very, very troubling. There's a quote on that site. He did leave the only public statement he has made in public, or at least to me, in private, was on his Mac OS X automation site. This one line that really does power everything he does. He says, I joined Apple in January of 1997 because of my profound belief that, quote, the power of the computer should reside in the hands of the one using it, unquote. And that really is everything that he accomplished and his team with Automator and AppleScript, saying if there's not a solution for this in this built-in features and apps on Apple that Apple gives you, we will let you create that solution for yourself, because you paid enough money for this computer. You should be able to create your own solutions for it. So that's a sad sign that there is a lack of a public commitment, at least. If Apple intends to replace AppleScript or the importance of AppleScript with another technology, they've shown no signs of it, and certainly Sal would be the person who would head up that sort of new thing. So that's not a good sign of anything.
This show actually began with Sal Soghoian. So he was, we did MacBreak under the aegis of Alex Lindsay, first as video. You may remember it was the first 1080p podcast that nobody could play because it was so high. This was back in the day when it was just too much for anybody to play back. Barely could edit it. And Sal did a number of great Automator segments with me and others, and they were fantastic. I've loved Sal. We've gone on many cruises together. He was a regular on the Geek Cruises and Mac Mania.
He's just a magnificent human being beyond all the Automator.
Love it. I got an email from Naomi. I saw your tweet, Andy, and I got an email from Naomi Pierce's wife that this had happened. Sal says he's going to take the rest of the month off, and then starting December 1st, we'll be considering opportunities and available for consulting. But I agree with you. So for a long time, Automator and AppleScript had been kind of the redheaded stepchild at Apple. They hadn't been much paid attention to, like that player piano in the basement. But Sal kept it going, and Sal convinced me, because I talked to him. I said, I love it, but Apple pays no attention to it. Automator was really an amazing addition to AppleScript that gave you such programmability. I said, but do people really use it? I mean, you've got Ruby and Python, and you've got Bash scripting. And he said, no, you have to understand this is very widely used. It sells a lot of Macintoshes, particularly in pre-press applications. Magazine and newspaper publishing. People use Automator and AppleScript to stitch together processes, and it's vital for a large number of pro business users.
So many workflows.
It's in the workflow. So those people, I'm sure, are starting to think, about other solutions, than Macintosh. And I think this is, more than anything else, a very clear signal from Tim Cook and Apple that this is not the business they want to be in. They are abandoning this market, this pro market. And admittedly, it's probably a small market for them, especially when compared to the iPhone market. But I do not think this is a good harbinger of the future of the Macintosh.
And they use those. They use those things internally quite a lot too, is my understanding.
Somebody in the chat room saying it's death by 1,000 cuts. And it is.
Yeah.
If you see this, bit by bit. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I think that a lot of people who are fans of the Mac, who want to continue to support the Mac and continue to buy Macs, they're at the point where now we're looking. I'm sorry, I'll speak for myself. I'm looking for signs that Apple really is committed to moving this platform forward. That the fact that it doesn't sell as much in volume or as in profits as iOS devices, that doesn't matter. They're committed to, this is a great platform. This is a great operating system. These are great laptops. That alone is the reason why we want to move them forward. And when they let something as great as Automator just die on the vine like that, more than that, when they let someone as great as Sal go, I mean, if you just want to hire him to be, if you learn that, wow, Sal makes great burritos, we're going to hire him to be our chief officer of burritos, and we will have the best burritos in the entire valley in all of our restaurants. You can't let a guy like that go. And the fact that they don't see the value of Sal somewhere in the company, or for all I know, again, I don't know anything that has not been posted there. Even it really speaks well to Sal and Naomi that even though I hung out with them for hours, we were at Mac Tech together, and I don't know anything about the situation other than what was posted. So obviously he's not new. He's not loose-lipped. He's not prone to gossip or to say good or bad. For all I know, they offered him another position which he didn't find suitable, and this is part of the exit process, so to speak.
Yeah, but Sal always classy to the end.
Yeah. Right. It's just, so don't think that like I know anything that anybody else doesn't. But I have to think that I would like to think that I live in a world in which as soon as the word gets out that Sal Soghoian is up for grabs, other companies are going to grab him. That his commute is just going to go, I don't know, a little bit further to Mountain View instead of Cupertino this time, or that there will be 2 years from now, we will look at 2 or 3 different companies and say, gee, how come this product suddenly became 10 times better with the next release they did in 2017, 2018, and then we'll rewind and figure out, because in 2016, early 2017, that's when Sal Soghoian became a consultant and started working for pretty much anybody who offered him a project that was interesting. He is way too valuable to let go. And so I don't believe that this is a sign that the Mac is dead. I don't think this is a sign that Apple has lost its way. I do think, though, for someone like me who is looking for a reassuring sign that they're not content in just dumbing down the Mac so that it is as much like a super iPad as possible, that they really see the unique advantages of a high performance, high power machine, something that it doesn't matter that you're just a consumer. You can actually do what you want to do with this. This is not a sign that encourages me that Apple is going to be pursuing the Mac as a really important and interesting platform in the future. It really bummed me out in ways that go beyond my friend not having a job that he liked anymore.
So just to riff on what Andy was saying, like even if you take Apple as its word, because Craig Federighi did email and someone and said, we're totally committed to this technology, and you can choose to believe that or not believe it. But to Andy's point, Sal Soghoian has just so much institutional knowledge that it's a tremendous. There's no spin on how tremendous a loss that is. And if we don't know if he was offered another position or not, but I think any VP worth their salt would want to grab him up, whether it's internally at Apple or at Google or at Microsoft or Facebook, any of the big companies.
John Gruber writes, this sounds ominous. This week in my review of the new MacBook Pro is a huge part of my argument for why I feel so much more productive on a Mac than an iPad revolves around the automation technology that Soghoian's group developed. I have the impression that Soghoian was a bit of a rebel within Apple. I always had that impression too, fighting the good fight to keep advancing the Mac's automation tools. If they had simply fired him, that'd be one thing, but the fact they've eliminated his position is another. I find this to be a profoundly worrisome turn of events for the future of the Mac. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. He also, in Daring Fireball blog, quotes Doug Adams of Doug's Apple Script for iTunes, who says the opposite. Meanwhile, he says all the same things about Sal. Everybody loves Sal. But Doug does say, I'm optimistic about the future of desktop automation on the Mac. I guess I have to be. I am not optimistic. It's not that they fired Sal. It's that they got rid of the position.
My guess is you're going to see a major news of much more major reorgs going on inside Apple. So that part could just be the graceful way that, if you don't just fire Sal. I don't care who you are, you don't fire Sal. So that might just be a way in which they were moving things around. But I think you're going to see a lot more in terms of reorganization in Apple's software engineering company. So I wouldn't take that part of it. I think his loss is huge. It's detrimental, but I think the rest of it is just a sign of what's going to come as Apple grows their software org.
Yeah, I mean, it really is the mind that they're losing. It's not. It's this is. I've spent lots and lots of hours hanging out with him. I do consider him and Naomi to be personal friends, so I should mention that. But that only means that I'm experiencing just his mindset on everything in the world, and this is the sort of person that can help out any company. You're losing a hell of a lot. I also can't let this pass without mentioning one of the classic stories about Sal, which concerns when Steve Jobs came back to Apple and had the basic he came back to Apple and then basically had that big meeting where they had about 100 different product managers all together in one room so he could yell at all of them and say that your technology is a piece of crap. You should be embarrassed. You're turning Apple into a pile of crap. Just boom, 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 just bang, 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 manager by manager by manager. And then it gets to Sal. He says, no one should use this. This isn't important. This is what. And then he basically said, no, you're full of crap, Steve. You don't understand. You only don't like it because you don't understand it. And this back and forth, not polite conversation, but basically just two elephants just bang, 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 bang. And then finally, according to the story, Steve pauses and then says, okay, now about the printing structure. Printing sucks on the Mac. Why?
Yeah, Sal tells that story, and that tells you right there how important Sal is to Apple. Boy, it's very disappointing. And as you say, I should also cop to being a friend, but it's worrisome to me. Now, if you've been wondering what Jony Ive has been up to, well, here's the good news. He's been doing a room-size Christmas tree for Claridge's Hotel in London with Mark Newsom. This is actually when we were in London last year. We stayed at Claridge's. It's one of the old line hotels in London. Wonderful hotel.
Who said skeuomorphism was dead?
Look at this. It's quite beautiful. It's a immersive Christmas tree installation. A magical experience in the lobby of the hotel, which is in the very posh Mayfair district of London. So for the installation, the entrance to the hotel has been lined with 4-meter-high light boxes that glow with black and white photographs of snow-covered silver birch trees. And then real birch trees are placed in front of the backdrop in small mounds of artificial snow, while larger pine trees stand in the foreground. What are you laughing at, Andy? This is...
No, I'm just, I remember as a little kid, my mom and my dad would just bundle up all of us little kids to drive down in the station wagon to the middle of town to look at the bare Christmas tree with all of the projections projected on it, with the simulations of birch trees around it, and God, what a wonderful, cherished holiday memory that is.
In one corner,
the Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
This is very Jony Ive. In one corner, a young meter-high tree stands on its own, something the designers describe as symbolic of the future. If this is Jony Ive's future, I'm a little worried for
It's beginning
for
to look a lot like Christmas.
Claridge,
do you have the ad, Leo? Do you have the new ad?
But not.
I do have the. You want to see the new ad?
I think it dovetails nicely into
the bulbs ad. Yeah, this is the new
Frankie's holiday.
The new Apple MacBook. And I guess it's all audio. So somebody's striking sparks on a rock.
Oh my God!
There's a newer ad.
Creating fire. Oh, there's a newer one than this. Well, let's show this, and I'll show the new one. This is, and then light bulbs. I don't know, and then writing, and then more light bulbs exploding. Then the plow. then Main Street, USA, then light bulbs exploding,
Barry
then a
Allen.
hammer, then an apple falling from a
Barry
tree,
Allen.
and then more apple light bulbs exploding, a penny farthing bicycle, a locomotive, a guy trying to fly, and then escalator, light bulbs exploding, and the dial phone. And the light bulbs continue to explode. They're going up Main Street, USA. There's this typewriter. The light bulbs explode, and then more light bulbs explode, and then toilet paper, and then microwave and flash bulbs, and then the record player and a TV set and a jetpack and more light bulbs and the gas station and the market and the light bulbs and the refrigerator and the Tamagotchi and then the Macintosh, the first Macintosh, then windmills, and then more light bulbs. This is an Apple ad, and then the Concorde, and then a robot hand and a robot dog, and then the space shuttle, and then the Apple iPhone and a drone, and it's snowing, and the robot's running down the road, and the light bulbs explode, and soon we're in a cave. Ideas push the world forward, introducing a tool for all the ideas to come. MacBook Pro can explode a light bulb with the Touch Bar.
Wow.
That is weird.
That is heroically stupid. That is a heroically stupid
Here's
ad.
the new one, Frankie's Holiday.
Relax.
So there's a music box. He's recording it into the iPhone. Okay, is that Santa or Frankenstein? I think it's Frankenstein.
Wait.
Oh, he's dusting off his top hat. He's going to the mailbox. And there's a
Scrooge
little...
type character.
Yeah. Well, no, but it's Frankenstein. So he's got the bolts. Wait a minute. Who is that actor? That looks familiar. Is that Doctor Who? Okay, and then... Oh, back to the street with the exploding light bulbs. He's carrying the box that he got in the mail. Oh my God, it's the monster. Oh, who is that?
Just needs moisturizer, that's all. Come on.
Frankie's plugging in the light bulbs into his bolts. And he's gonna play the music box music.
There's no place like home for the holidays.
People are staring at him with puzzled expressions. Oh, one of the light bulbs goes out. Oh, poor Frankie. Give him a MacBook. Oh, the little girl's gonna give him some. Frankie. Oh, she just taps the light bulb, it comes back on. Everybody's...
'Cause no matter how far away you roam, when you pine for the sunshine of a friendly day.
Nobody knows the lyrics to that song. You will never get
Really,
away
they
with
all
that in
do.
real life.
They all know. Open your heart to everyone. So this is the analog of the ad Apple did where the Apple employees were going over to the Microsoft store on Fifth Avenue last year. Now it's Frankenstein and a music
I think it's
box.
the same director who did that ad where the kid was not relating to his family until he made a video for them.
That was a good
I believe
ad.
it's the same director.
Both earlier ads featured products being used. These are more, wow.
There's still a new Drake ad, Leo. I mean, if none of this did it for you, there's the bookend to the Taylor Swift treadmill video now with Drake.
All right.
Drake and a bench press. It's Drake versus the bench press.
Let me
All the
look-
holiday budget
Let me
being
look
spent.
up the Drake Apple Music Drake versus.
YouTube.com/Apple.
There's Drake lifting, pumping iron, lifting the dumbbells. Ho!
No mercy. No mercy this year. Let's get it.
No mercy. He's got I didn't know he had a pumpkin tattoo. That's interesting. So he's looking at his phone. He's playing Bad Blood.
Baby, now we got bad blood. You know it used to be
Lip syncing.
bad love. So take a look what you've done. 'Cause baby, now we got bad blood.
I don't know.
Now we got
Is Drake that street really, though? I always thought of him as more
He's from the
Canadian.
6. He's from Toronto.
Yeah, he's more Canadian.
6.
Yeah.
And baby, now we got bad blood.
From the winter streets.
So sad to
Hey, if you can survive the winter streets of Toronto. Now he's lifting like, that's like 200. He's pressing 225 there. It's 90, 180 plus 45. Yeah, he's got two. Oh, it hurt him. You don't ever want that to happen. Okay.
No.
He was pressing 225.
So him and Taylor Swift are both in urgent care right now.
I feel like Apple's ad agency might have lost its way a little bit.
I don't know what's being advertised here. This is definitely Apple as lifestyle, as opposed to, yes, but what do I get for my $2,300, sir or madam?
So they're saying that the Frankenstein was Everybody Loves Raymond. Raymond, was it?
Was it?
No.
Ray Romano? I don't think so.
It wasn't Ray Romano, but it might have been somebody on that show.
The brother?
Oh.
Who was it? It looked like somebody. Yeah, it looked like the brother.
Yeah,
Looked
maybe.
like somebody. It's hard to tell with Frankenstein makeup on. Okay. Well, Apple's got a lot of money.
I preferred the midnight, the one they did for midnight,
Brad Garrett, that's who it was.
and the Go Time, I think, for the Apple Watch. I thought both of those were really well done.
Yeah, they got. I don't know. I think that this is not the sort of thing that you text your friends to go watch. Coca-Cola has a new CGI polar bear commercial. I'm looking forward to that. Always looking forward to the Hershey's Kisses that play "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." That's a classic. I get it. It's fun, as opposed to the. Okay. I'm glad they have like a holiday one that's all it's always like 10 p.m. and it's
plays
overcast.
Frankenstein in the new Apple ad? Let's see if Siri knows.
Here's what I found on the web for who plays Frankenstein in
it's
the
Brad
new
Garrett.
Apple ad.
Oh, Brad Garrett, nice.
That's just good casting.
How much do you think he got paid to do that? That's got to be a good payday.
There you go.
And they had a whole village and people who knew the lyrics to that song. It's not cheap. Now, how do you feel about Apple? You got Jony Ive designing lobby installations for the Claridge's Hotel. You got Frankenstein ads or bulb bursting ads.
Well, the Frankenstein ad at the end it's basically an inclusivity video. At the end, it says, for everyone.
It's following along on that one where they sang to the Microsoft store. It's that same kind of feel good.
Well, I think this is for a different climate. Like I wouldn't put it past them to try to make a bit of a point.
Wait a minute. You think that's political? No, that wasn't political.
No, not political, but I think that in a time of division, I think they were very deliberate in making it a very inclusive.
One would
even the
expect
monster
that.
deserves Christmas.
One would expect that. It's very interesting to watch the ultra-liberal companies in Silicon Valley kind of trying to deal with this. You know, Apple could really this could be a boon for Apple. Tim Cook has been begging for forgiveness on the tax consequences of repatriating the billions of dollars they have overseas, and President-elect Trump has indicated that he wants to do that. So this could actually...
Irony, he had his social agenda, but not his fiscal one. Then he'll have his fiscal agenda, but not his social.
It's just so unpredictable. It's hard to know what exactly is going to happen next. But I'll be watching the Twitter to make sure to find out. App Store fees will be cut in half for video services, according to The Verge. What does that mean? I don't... it's going to cut... Oh, I get it. Okay, actually, this comes again from Bloomberg. That Gurman fella. It all starts... Actually, this is Lucas Shaw and Alex Webb. So, you know that Apple charges 30 cents on the dollar for purchases on the App Store. They would like to get more streaming apps in the App Store. And they had cut... Didn't they cut the price for streaming music for some after a year?
They cut it for everything, but it was after a year, and I think this just takes it a step further.
This is from 30% to 15% for subscription video streaming apps. In other words, Netflix. Really what Apple doesn't have in its TV app is Netflix. This is clearly a little, hey, come on, Netflix, work with us here. Work with us here. And I don't think the TV app really makes sense until you have all of the streaming apps that you use in there. And then it makes a lot of sense. Then it's an aggregator that I could really use. But when you have the big boy, Netflix holding out, that's a problem. So maybe this is their way of...
Well, I think like there's been rumors for years that the big companies had sweetheart deals to begin with. So it's probably just levels that playing field.
I would expect that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you negotiate. I mean, it's like the same with any vendor. When you have someone who contributes that much towards your portfolio, they tend to get better terms.
Apple is going to host Hour of Code workshops next month, December 5th through 11th. at Apple stores around the world. I think this is a great thing. They've opened up registration for their workshops. They're doing it with code.org. Code.org each year does the Hour of Code.
I've been to 2 of them now, and they're fantastic.
Nice.
And this year they're doing Swift. So this year it's greatly expanded. Previously it was just literally 1 hour, and you'd show up, and I took my godkids, and they would give you those sort of fundamental JavaScript. It was those, I forget the name of it. It was the code.org stuff, where it just let kids move blocks around to accomplish very simple tasks and make very simple chains.
This time they're going to use playgrounds.
Yeah, and I think that they're going to have it on multiple days. And there's a new playground. There's a new download in. So Playgrounds got updated to Playgrounds 1.1, and there's a new download in there that goes with the code.org stuff that they're going to be doing for Hour of Code, which is really awesome. And
Apple does offer a free guide if you are want to do your own Hour of Code workshop. So if you're a teacher or a school, you can download the guide and then have a curriculum to do this yourself using, you'd have to have an iPad and the Playgrounds. But this is a facilitator's guide freely available for people who want to host their own Hour of Code. We should do that here. That would be really fun. That would be really fun. So what happens? You have an instructor or...
Yeah, so the Apple staff, Apple has all these educational people there who are doing workshops all the time anyway. So they all sort of, we had close to, I think, an instructor-to-child ratio. It was magnificent. And the kids sit there with their iPads, and I think they had a couple Macs set up, and the people go around and help them with the projects. And they have a speaker in the front, and it was really well done.
Here's how you start. Draw a smiley.
I have pictures up on iMore, but I don't have the URL with me handy.
This is really great. They give you, in the facilitator's guide, they tell you what to do, so you don't have to really even know how to code particularly. It would be helpful, of course, but it's very beginning stuff. I mean, it's for loops and stuff. But that's neat. For middle school and above on iPad, next steps. For high school and above on Mac, next steps. Really great. By the way, Microsoft has announced that they're going to put Microsoft Visual Studio on the Macintosh.
Yep.
Which is a little interesting. What do you make of that?
I think it's a Microsoft being. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, just that it's an important development platform. It's great for business, great for enterprise. It's how you make tools for everything. It's also how you make tools that support Office exceptionally well. And Microsoft's play in the 21st century has always been, we don't care what hardware you run our software on. We don't care the context which you run our software, so long as you run our software and support our development and services. So this is just as important as what they're doing as putting Office on every mobile operating system there is.
We've talked before about Apple's chip choices on the CDMA version of the iPhone versus the GSM iPhone, and according to Bloomberg Technology, once again, Apple is slowing down LTE on Verizon so that it is as slow as on AT&T. According to researchers at a company called Twin Prime Incorporated and Cellular Insights, neither firm says why, but Twin Prime says it may be because Apple isn't using all the potential of a crucial component in the Verizon version. It's not using all of Verizon's network capabilities. Twin Prime says, we don't think they're throttling the iPhone, but maybe they're not enabling all the features of the CDMA version. It's always been said that you want to use the CDMA version of the iPhone because it has the Qualcomm chip versus the less capable Intel chip.
I would just go with Qualcomm anyway because they've been doing it for so long. Intel will get their legs, but I don't know if they have it now. Apple is funny. So what they typically do is they said, this is what we want to support for this phone, and every chip has to support that. And some chips will do better than that, but Apple's might just say we want 3x carrier aggregation for the iPhone 7. It doesn't matter that a chip does 4x. Or it doesn't matter that there's an FM radio on the chip as well. They just have no interest in those things. And it's not that those things are great.
Hold on. I got to turn on. No, don't. You see, you're so Canadian. You're apologizing because I interrupted you.
Well, no, I was going to say, they've had FM radio capabilities on iPhones forever, and it's just not a part of the chip that they enable. And there's all sorts of things. And when you're dealing with carrier aggregation and the different features,
don't want that.
They set a target, and they said, this is what we want for the phone. And if the chip does extra things, that's fine. But they're not taking anything away. It's just a feature they never plan to implement.
Right. I'm going to...
But I'd still get the Qualcomm thing because I trust them more, and I believe it's probably a better modem.
Yeah. That was always the story was get the Verizon version. It's the best iPhone because it's the most capable.
I'll spare you my rant about how CDMA in the U.S. and China has held back the rest of the world for years.
Speaking of China, one of the big question marks with a new Trump administration is what kind of trade issues are going to come up with China. Of course, currently we have a favorable trade situation from Chinese point of view. Trump's talked about increasing tariffs and punishing China in other ways, which would make it very challenging for companies that manufacture in China devices to be sold in the United States. And I could guarantee you right now in Apple, they're thinking about, well, what do we do if suddenly we have a 15% or more tariff on products made in China? Apparently, according to Edward Moyer writing at CNET, Apple has told Asian firms that manufacture the phone to explore the possibility of relocating production to the U.S. That is an interesting. We've seen before that the estimate is that the cost of assembly, which is fairly low, would add merely $4 or $5 to the overall price of the iPhone. But according to the Nikkei Asian Review and anonymous sources, Apple has asked two firms to look at Foxconn and Pegatron, which make a lot of stuff for Apple, about what would it take to build a factory in the U.S. They've done this before. Remember, Foxconn built a factory in Brazil when Brazilian tariffs got out of control.
They were looking at it for India, too, for similar reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, India, it's not merely tariffs. India really wants to restrict products to those made in India and puts all sorts of burdens on companies that aren't.
I mean, Liechtenstein could demand that all Liechtensteinian iPhones be made there, too. I mean, that's what direction we're heading.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They're certainly looking into that seriously. I'm sure that research has been ongoing far beyond this current administration, because all it has to do, again, the sand is shifting underneath people's feet. Any company that does not have an idea of what they would do if it suddenly became too expensive or too cumbersome to produce all of their stuff where they're currently producing it, they've got to have a plan B, or else they're absolutely sunk.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. Motorola tried that a few years ago, though, and they quickly shifted from we're making this phone completely in the United States to we're doing some assembly in the United States to suddenly not talking about that anymore. So maybe again, it's not so much that can't be done, but under the climate that existed 3 or 4 years ago, it was really, really not an easy thing to do.
Mac Pro was made in Texas, right?
Right, because you only needed to make a few hundred.
18, yeah.
Ever. No, but the thing is, like it's not. My understanding is it's not so much. Again, it's not so much the cost, but it's the proximity. Like they have China set up the Shenzhen industrial zone, and they have other industrial zones where all those buildings and all those people are close together. And the U.S. could set up the Texas industrial zone, or wherever there's huge amount. The Nevada, like right next to Area 51, there could be an Area 52 that's an industrial zone, and you build all those buildings, and then you staff them up. I mean, it's a logistical undertaking.
Of course, the idea is that you bring jobs back to the United States. The question is whether you really would, or would these factories be highly automated? Even Foxconn in China is moving towards highly automated factories.
Yeah. And do people want those jobs? I mean, they're not.
I'm no genius on this stuff, but my suspicion is when it really comes down to this kind of trade war that that the U.S. would back down on this. You'll actually cost far more jobs. Some estimates are unemployment would go to 9% if you suddenly start a trade war with China and other trading partners.
It's a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing to get people to cheer and vote for you. But then, as we saw with Obama, as we saw with Bush, as we saw with every president, then you get inside the office and you get to see all the information, and you're saying, "Oh dear, that's not a good thing."
Yeah, that may not work. Yeah. So my guess is
really
when the rubber hits the road, we're not going to see a trade war with China. I would hope not.
No. They'll slap a 30% tariff on any hotel with the president's name on it, and it'll just change.
There's all sorts of nasty things that could happen.
We had the Quebec premier, like our version of the governor, was running for election, and we have a civil service that's roughly the size of California, even though Quebec is 1/1000th the size. And he said that he was going to reduce the size to a manageable level, and that lasted all of a week post-election.
Yeah.
Because reality is they run the government. performance. So.
This is always, and that's why everybody says politicians lie. You make a lot of promises during the election cycle, and then reality sets in, and you know. That's this. I think we're used to this by now, right?
I think I told this story before, but I knew a guy who wanted to work at Apple for years and years and years, and he went there, and while he was doing his orientation, he said, I have all these ideas to fix these things, and they said, wonderful. Here's the first time we tried, and this is what happened. The second time we tried, this is what happened. The third time, I mean, if you can figure it out, go for it. But we've been trying to do those things for years.
But to be fair, Trump continues to reiterate that in his first day in office, he's going to announce his intent to withdraw from TPP and NAFTA, and we'll see. We'll just see what happens. But that would very much affect Apple's
Not TCP/IP. That's something totally different.
You can't withdraw from TCP/IP. We're all deeply embedded in that. Let's take a break. And your picks of the week still to come as we continue to talk Apple on MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, the Chicago Sun-Times, Rene Ritchie of iMore.com. If you are, it's funny, we have a producer here who's looking at a new house. And, of course, as soon as he saw that, I said, Rocket Mortgage, right? Rocket Mortgage is from Quicken Loans, which is, of course, the best mortgage lender in the United States, and designed for you, the geek, because it is a mortgage product that is completely online. So if you're ready to buy a new home or you want to refinance your home, and you really don't, if you've ever bought a home, it's so paper intensive. It really is a 19th century process in many cases. You got to get papers together with your pay stubs and your bank statements, and who has those? And if you did, they're in the attic. You got to go through boxes, and then you go to the lending office, and they have to page through little pages of paper with tiny print on them to figure out what loan product, and it's just nuts. Now with computers, you should be able to do this all online, and that's how Rocket Mortgage works. It brings the mortgage approval process into the 21st century. It's fast, it's powerful, completely online. No more paperwork. You can share your bank statements and pay stubs at the touch of a button. And by the way, you can do this on your iPhone or your iPad or your Android device. It means you don't have to even get up from the couch. And because of computers, they're going to approve your loan in minutes, and it's going to be a custom solution that's tailored for your specific needs. It's very quick, very simple, just a few easy questions, and you'll be approved. You'll be ready to go. Rocket Mortgage, you can even see exactly what it's going to cost you. I mean, this is transparency. This is upfront. This is fast. It's everything you're looking for. If you want to know more, quickenloans.com/MacBreak. Looking to refi or buy a home, Rocket Mortgage, equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states, and MLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030. And you know what? Just remember, quickenloans.com/MacBreak, because it happens all the time. You just say, I got a little free time. We'll just go look at open houses. We're not going to buy anything. We're just going to look at houses. And then you see a house you love. Just remember, when that happens, quickenloans.com/MacBreak. Time for our picks of the week. Rene Ritchie, start it off for us, laddie.
So mine is actually, and I wasn't able to open the doc. Don't ask. I've started up a new computer and I'm just getting a beach ball in my browser. But if you go to imore.com/gift-guide, Serenity Caldwell and I spent most of the weekend putting together our top picks for people who are shopping, whether it's for Black Friday or for the holidays. And we basically went through everything and picked our favorite, from big stuff like our favorite iPhone, our favorite iPad, our favorite Mac, but also other things like headphones and peripherals and almost anything we could think of that we thought that would go well with people who like sort of Apple-y stuff. So if you are on the lookout for a new phone, for a new computer, for music gifts, for sort of any of those things, those are the Sennheiser headphones that
I will vouch for those. I just bought those because I wanted to see what the best Bluetooth headphone currently could do. And Bluetooth is the problem. I mean, the headphones are great, but they sound much better wired than they do on Bluetooth, I'll be honest.
Yeah. But it's those weird, like you can crack them. Like it looks like a chiropractic move where you twist them around to get them to do things.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah,
and they're pricey. Yeah. But if you want the best Bluetooth, this is as good as.
And we have some non-pricey stuff on there too. Like the UE Boom 2 is great, little Bluetooth speaker, and we have home theater stuff. There's just photography stuff, all sorts of the stuff that we sort of love. And we're going to do individual articles. Like we're going to have Georgia and Serenity and Lori, everybody do their own personal wish lists. But we wanted to get something up just for people who might be shopping this week.
Georgia was great on Twit this week, by the way.
That whole Twitch show was magnificent.
Wow. Baratunde, Odocta, and Georgia. Odocta and Georgia have a little thing going on.
Yes. Yeah, they play well off each other.
It's so cute. I agree, by the way, Apple Photo Books, people forget, but that is a really easy, fast way to do it. We always do our Christmas cards through Apple, the Twit business cards through Apple.
For many years, I would take all the photos I took of my godkids throughout the year and make a photo book and give that to their parents, so they'd each get a copy of that. I did that for their first 5 years each. As they get older, the books I don't know. It's not that they're not important anymore, but it's just when you have all those baby years in that little book, it's just an easy home run of a present.
Yeah.
I was looking for that early. I was looking for that just a couple weeks ago. I couldn't find in photos where you order books and prints and stuff.
I think it's in the. in the projects
Photos
menu.
is so damn opaque.
Yeah.
I don't. The UI. It's like I like it. It's streamlined, but try and figure out how to do something.
I have made them in there, so I know it is possible. I just haven't started photos on this. I'm on a new computer, and I have not started photos on it yet. And so now it wants to use iCloud Library. No, not now.
Memory view
that download will take
window. Album projects. I bet it's in projects. Yeah, it's in projects. So what you do is you Command 5, Andy. Command 5.
Okay.
You have to actually go to the menu, and then choose projects, and then you can do it. Click the Create menu to begin making your own book, card, calendar, prints, or slideshow.
See, I have to admit I screwed myself here. I couldn't find it no matter how much I looked for it, and then immediately I had some version of the thought, well, it's a feature that I really, really liked, so I have to be open to the possibility that Apple killed it for that reason, and I stopped looking at so hard.
Look at this. Albums, when I'm a book. So I'm going to do, let's see, or a calendar or a card. Let me do a book. I have to say, the thing to remember, there are lots of people that do this a lot cheaper than this, but they use printers that aren't as good. Apple really uses the best printers. I
have some that are 10, 15 years old, and that's great.
They're full bleed. The screening is really high quality.
When my mom sold her house, we took all the photos of us growing up in the house and made it into a book and gave it to her.
Great. That's sweet. That's really sweet.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things you can do with them.
Yeah. Andrew Inatko, pick of the week.
Now's a great time to pimp Sal Soghoian's incredible automation websites. He would, on his own, create these non-Apple sites that are, say, this website is not hosted by Apple Incorporated, but they really should have been, because they just are these amazing websites and tutorials that show what is possible, and just not only encourage you to learn AppleScript and Automator, but actually give you working code that inspires you to, wow, you know how once every Tuesday morning I have to give that 10-minute presentation with all the data we collected over the weekend, and it takes me 45 minutes on Monday night or an hour on Monday night to put it together. I could actually spend 1 hour once writing an Apple script to actually build a beautiful keynote presentation based on the data that I have from wherever it is right now. And all I have to do is click one button, and instead of being 12 hours old, it will be maybe 5 minutes old. And honestly, I didn't know what I could be doing with Keynote. He gave this app. That's part of the talk that Sal gave at Mac Tech on Wednesday, and I was giving the closing keynote on Friday, and on Wednesday night, I kid you not, I had to talk myself out of taking this presentation that I'd written that was it was finished, it was done, and thinking, maybe I should just write an Apple script to build it automatically, because that would be cool. I said, Andy, why do you want to spend a bunch of time learning something brand new to just replicate what you've done automatically? But it really has gotten me inspired that maybe the next time I give a presentation, I'm oftentimes the very, very last night before, I'm running through and I see that, that doesn't need to be there, or maybe I should add this. It'd be really cool to be able to just simply create an Omni Outliner outline that just has the information I want to present, and then a script is at the very 10 minutes before I go on is what builds it into the great presentation with all the transitions and stuff. And it's not just Keynote; it's everything you can do to automate your workflow on a Mac. It's right there. It also has there are sub-sites underneath there. There's a macOSXautomation.com. There's also his latest site, dictationcommands.com. He gave this amazing demonstration on Wednesday that you think that Siri is kind of interesting and kind of useful. Dictation commands. He showed with some scripts that he added to just as a user to the Mac. He was able to have the Mac do everything just by voice command, and not run this script named this. Now run this script named this. It's, I want to create a presentation. I'll do it entirely via voice. I will go through an entire photo album and add captions to it one by one using nothing but voice commands. And then I'm going to have it put together a presentation for me automatically. And it really does show you all the machinery that's baked into Mac OS, that it's machinery that's just lying fallow, that if you just simply give it a spin, oh my God, the stuff that the time you realize you're wasting in repetitive and easily scripted tasks, these sites can really, really change your life in a major way. It'll give you more goofing off time than you ever imagined were possible.
He did Automator.us too, and it's funny, I go there.
Yep.
And it says for leopard. It's from 2008, but it's still good. It would be a crime if Apple doesn't need to improve this. They just need to leave it in OS, Mac OS. Because
and if they actually pretended they were proud of it, imagine what they could do with it. I think I've always said that I think that Apple's real blind side is not realizing that the users that you're trying to appeal to in the first 2 or 3 weeks they own the product, unless the thing catches on fire, they're going to be users that have 6 months of experience and a year of experience and 2 years of experience. And what are you doing to make their lives easier? What are you doing to make them happy enough with the Macintosh that when they get tempted by a Windows machine or even a Linux machine, what are you showing them that makes the Macintosh materially better than these alternatives? And I think that by not enhancing, not giving automation the support it deserves, particularly giving the stellar qualities of just Automator, I think they're basically saying, I don't know, they're letting horses run away from them when that horse needs to be doing useful work for Apple. I've always, it's been a while since I gave a lot of talks to user groups, but I would always want to talk about Automator and the amount of the jaws that would hit laps, the jaws that would just drop to the floor, showing, well, here's something that you've always been able to do, and it's not scripting, it's just picking up Legos, dropping them into the order in which you want things to happen in, and then suddenly with just like 8 clicks, you have a tactical heads-up navigational display for your car that just got built by clicking 4 little blocks together, and boom, it gets done automatically. So I just wish that Apple would see the value in the stuff that they already have. It's too bad. But these sites will really help you out.
My picks of the week this week are really kind of informed by the fact that I got a new Macintosh this week. So, woohoo! And I do not, although it is easy, migrate my old Mac to my new Mac. I like to start from scratch. And they're just some basic things I always install. You know, I got Lightroom on here, my MailMate, which is my favorite mail application, and of course, Final Cut and Logic. But a couple of picks that I always install. You can use Apple's own terminal, but if you like the terminal a lot, you got to get iTerm 2. The new Beta 3 is now kind of out of beta and is official. It is a free terminal program for the Macintosh that has a lot of features, including shell integration, tmux support, and so forth. That if you start to use shell seriously, you're gonna really want. And as long as you've started playing with the shell, and this is, by the way, still why I love Mac OS. I've got a full Unix operating system available to me under the hood, including a full shell. But of course, you may want to install some Unix style applications. There are several ways to do this. There's the Nix stuff. There's Mac ports, and of course, brand new Mac. I kind of debated which one to use because I've used all 3, but I ended up choosing the classic Homebrew once again. Once you've installed Homebrew, then you can install pretty much thousands of Unix apps very easily without disrupting your Macintosh. It is the missing package manager for Mac OS, and if you've used apt-get or Pacman or any of the package managers that are out there, you'll understand what that is. And it's free also. Homebrew is from brew.sh, and iTerm is from, I better check. I think iTerm.com. I haven't checked. I just Google stuff. Don't you just do that? Yeah, iTerm2.com. But you want to get the new, I think version 3 is now. It's still called iTerm 2, but it's beta 3, if that makes any sense. 2 picks for the price of 1. Thank you, everybody, for being here for MacBreak Weekly. Thank you to Andy Inako from the Chicago Sun-Times. His blog is cwob.com. He's on the Twitter at IHNATKO. Thanks also, of course, to Rene Ritchie, iMore.com. You'll find the podcast there and millions of words written by Rene by hand, hand-coded. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 1900 UTC. If you want to stop by, watch us live, be in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. You can also, incidentally, be in the studio. We have some nice people in the studio today. Thank you for traveling from all over, and including Australia, and visiting. All you have to do is email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a comfy chair out for you. But if you can't be here live, if you can't be here watching the stream, don't worry. We've got on-demand audio and video available after the fact at twit.tv/mbw. And you can subscribe there or on your favorite appliance, your favorite software. Make sure we're on Apple TV, we're on Roku, we're everywhere. iOS and Android and Windows and Mac. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now, my friends, I'm sorry to say it's time to get back to work because MacBreak is over.